What is up, everybody, and welcome into the Keeping It 1000 podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Use promo code DNVR whenever you sign up. I'm the host of today's show, Adam Mares, and I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Coach George Karl. Coach, happy holidays. How you doing?
I had a good day today. I spent a lot of money, bought a lot of presents. The street was sunshine and spirited. I walked around Cherry Creek for a couple hours. That's pretty cool.
So are you a last-minute shopper? We're only 2 days away from Christmas. Is this your typical shopping schedule?
I've been known as the last hour shopper. I've been at the 5 o'clock at Christmas Eve, running around picking up presents. Yep, I've been there before.
Yeah. I imagine. I always think about this with NBA players, NBA coaches. Christmas is a big time and for the NBA. They've made marquee games, but even if you're not playing on Christmas, you're playing right around it. And I always thought that must be difficult balancing family and Christmas and all of those things with getting 36 hours off, maybe less in some cases. Did you always want to step away during Christmas from the NBA, or was it too much to take your mind away from what you were doing to celebrate the holiday?
Oh, I would probably say it would be better to have an extra day or two. And instead of it's basically a 2-day break. You don't play on Christmas Eve and Christmas or Christmas. They usually give you 2 of those 3 days off. And if you can make it a little longer, I think that'd be maybe a possible that you could go someplace. I miss family during Christmas, but when your kids get old enough, you take them with you if you're on the road sometimes, and you meet up in New York or someplace. And I remember having a hell of a Christmas party in New York one year, and you're always, as an NBA coach, even at All-Star break, you might be able to get 24, 48 hours where you forget about it. But you're always worrying about what you have to do, what you have to improve on. As I got older, I got better at letting it go a little bit more. But I can't. We're all kind of idiots. We're in love with the game, and
that's what I mean, though. That's kind of what I'm getting at here is I'm thinking about just where teams are. And this year's a little different because everything's chaos. We're going to get into all of that. But I just thought you're in the middle of the season. Your mind is so ingrained in it that I imagine it's hard to take your mind off of it, especially when the window is so short. You don't have that much time. But, you played on Christmas or coached on Christmas many times. Did you like getting the Christmas Day game?
I don't really remember. I think in the early, I would probably say yes, because it's like a trophy. Usually only the best they want the best teams to play on Christmas, and that's been kind of the legacy of NBA Christmas Day basketball. They don't have every bit, but they don't have many bad teams playing on Christmas Day.
This year they do. This year they have a lot of them.
Well, that's because of whatever is going on in our chaotic world that we're calling
Partially, yes, but hold on. I have to push back on it one thing because this is my wheelhouse. This is the thing I get so frustrated on. The Knicks almost always play on Christmas. The Knicks are almost always bad. The Celtics this year are playing on Christmas. The Celtics, they're getting the legacy bump. Those are not 2 of your top 10 best teams in the NBA, but they always get that slot. So sometimes we get the best teams, but oftentimes we just get the big markets or the big names, regardless of if their teams are good.
Well, there's no question that the one thing when I worked for ESPN that was very obnoxiously displayed by the executives is that the big markets is the only thing we worry about. We don't worry about Denver, Colorado. Right. We don't worry about Sacramento, California. We don't worry about New Orleans. They want the top 10 markets to be dominated by NBA basketball, and winning that market, probably means a hell of a lot in negotiations on the money part of our business.
Right. So you liked the Christmas, like being a marquee game, or would you, if you had your call and you have a good team, a good playoff team, a title contending team, were you hoping you got the Christmas game, or are you hoping you got that day off?
I would say most of the time I wanted it to be a reward to the team. So, I mean, towards the end, there was probably different types of scheduling that you want to complain about other than just playing on Christmas Day. 4 games in 5 nights
Right.
was the first thing everybody complained about. How long your road trips when you go on that long 5 or 6 or 7 game road trip. Is it 10 days or is it 12 days or, the long road trips, I think they've done a better job of shortening and doing more road trips rather than one long road trip. But in general, I think, the load management people have really been putting a lot of stress and pressure on the league office to be more fair in their scheduling. I have, being out of it for 6 or 7 years, I don't study it as much, but I thought, at the beginning of the year, there are times where you think you have a good schedule, and there are times you don't think it's a very good schedule at all. The one year my last year here in Denver, I think we played 21 road games in our first 35.
Right. Yep.
And we didn't have a great record. We were around 500, but we were like a +7 on the Doug Moe system. And then we went on a 16-game winning streak about mid-January. I think we went on a 16-game winning streak, and we blew up and got playing. I think in general, as a coach, you want your team to kind of have a steady flow and in a positive direction, but knowing that you're always going to have some dips. You're always going to have some dips. And I think right now you have a lot of good NBA rosters having some dips right now.
Right.
Denver being one, but we were talking how Atlanta, they don't even look like the same team they were last year. And, in a lot of ways, the 2 top teams, I think Phoenix and Golden State, have separated themselves a little bit from everybody else in the league in a lot of ways. Their confidence, their rhythm, their flow, their rotation. They're right now, I think, playing, I don't know what the number is, but substantially better than most every other NBA team.
They remind me of the 2014 San Antonio Spurs. Not necessarily stylistic, but there are some similarities. They pass well. They have well-defined roles, I think. But more in that, last year they went to the finals. And I think some people thought, okay, they were good, but were they great? Teams got hurt, whatever. This year, I think they're meaningfully better than what they were last year. And they were great last year. But I think they're even better, but they're almost being viewed as the same team. And like, oh, we already know that story. I don't think we know that story. I think they're better than they were last year and might be a team that actually surprises even healthy teams in the playoffs this year.
I agree. They play the game the right way. The one thing that I like about their team is they do know their roles.
Yeah.
And they know who they are. They know what they're responsible for doing. I wouldn't compare it to a San Antonio team as more a Belichick team.
Okay.
They're kind of a no-nonsense, no-mistake team. San Antonio doesn't beat themselves, so I guess that's what you're kind of saying. And I love their leadership. I think Monte is a hell of a man and a hell of a leader. He probably wouldn't like me to use the word hell in front of his name, though. And then you got Chris Paul, who, I don't know for how many years, I think he's been the best mental quarterback of the NBA.
Yeah.
He's not physically the best quarterback in the NBA, but mentally, he understands what the hell is going on out there better than so many players. And he leads aggressively, but I think he's also learned to be more positive in that leadership because he's been highly criticized for being maybe too demanding and too angry at times. But I mean, when he's saying the right thing, no one should be pissed off. But in today's world, that's the way we got to live a little bit. Our leadership sometimes keeps their mouth shut and doesn't want to speak up because there's going to be some controversy.
The thing about Chris Paul that I wonder, seems like a lot of these great players get better as the years go on, which makes sense. You're learning more about the game. You're getting more comfortable. You've seen everything. Your skill level and your understanding of the game just goes up. Even after you retire, I'm sure your mind, the more you're around it. But it used to be guys would start hitting a wall around 30, 31, and then you start to see a really sharp decline. I feel like not everyone, some guys do hit that wall still, but I feel like there's more players like a Chris Paul that 32, 33, it's not like it used to be 32, 33. They're still fine athletically. And he wasn't a guy that necessarily relied on super athleticism anyway. So in many ways, I feel like a Chris Paul is sort of at the top. He's at his ceiling right now, where usually you would think he's on the downturn.
Well, he is not as clever as he once was. And
really,
his quickness isn't as, he used to be really slippery, and now he's just slippery.
Yeah.
He's a great player, but I think so much of his skill is his ability to guide players to play the game the right way.
Right. Yeah.
And I said that a couple of games ago about Jokic. Jokic looked like he was almost a teacher on the court. He looked like he was directing the young guys and, just guiding them in a positive way. I think players, great players that want to make other people better is the greatest compliment I can give to anybody. And then get great players that also want to take their team and guide them mentally and professionally through how to be the best you can be, not only in your skills, like your shooting and running and strength and size and speed, but also in your mental makeup and preparation for the game that you have to play.
Right. Let's talk about Jokic, because I'm with you. I think Jokic does a great job of that, and his leadership in many ways is strong. Last night's game, I'm guessing you watched last night's game. That was – sometimes it surprises me. Like, sometimes this happens. It happens to every NBA team, their off night. But last night's game was more than just an off night. It was from the very first play, jump ball. They don't match up. There's a guy open in the corner, wide open for three. On the very first play, the team doesn't get matched up. And that wasn't an outlier. That was the mental approach that starting lineup had in the first quarter, in the second quarter, in the third quarter. When you're watching that game, are you screaming at your TV? And how does a team come out with that level of energy when they had 5 days off?
Well, you told me that they were stayed out on the road. I think that was probably the mistake that I wouldn't have done. As soon as I knew the Brooklyn thing was over, I probably would have come home. But that, again, could have been a Christmas thing. It could have been something that they had something planned. And
guys like to go out in New York. I don't know if that's what it was, but guys don't like – I wonder if you tell a team like, hey, I know we had a trip to New York planned. We're not doing it. We're going home. I wonder if there's guys that said, hey, I have plans in New York. I only come here once a year.
And plus it's Christmas and they could maybe have family flying in.
Yeah, that's true.
To New York. And so but having 4 days out on the road and at Christmas time could have created a lot of distraction, could have created – I always say that Christmas and New Year's, there's a weirdness to the league. And then around All-Star game and trade deadline, there's another weirdness to the league where a bad team beats a good team by 30.
Right.
And you go, whoa, what the? And last night's game, I'm sitting there, and I love there's a video of Vince Lombardi saying, what the hell's going on out there? And that's what I was saying. And Jokic was kind of whatever you want to label him, average. But no one kind of recognized it. It even seemed like Malone didn't even recognize it. And, in that situation, you got to find somebody. You got to give responsibility and demand things. But OKC has been playing.
What do you do when you say recognize it? Like, what you mean? Mix up the road. You make a substitution that you didn't plan on. It's like, hey, we're bringing in a guy, and maybe it gives some life. Is that, or is it a timeout and you really get into him? What do you mean? Recognize it. What do you do there?
Well, in my scenarios, in those situations, you could try. For me, I always wanted to know as quickly in the game how I was going to finish. So when the game was so bad early, and so, and OKC looked like a totally different team than we looked like. Their energy, their bounce, their togetherness, their focus, their flow, everything, loose balls, the calls were going against us for me, when you recognize it might not be, your team might not totally be there. Then you got to find out who is going to be those 5 guys. I didn't see a lot of different rotations last night until the end where he benched the starters. Well, I would have benched the starters in a different way. I've been rotating to try to find out who the hell wants to play.
Right.
And who the hell doesn't want to play. And not group him as, well, the starters don't want to play. I'm going to play the bench. That's only 2 options. When you mix and match, you could have 3, 4, 5 different options. And to be honest with you, the way they played last night, it probably wouldn't have
mattered. I actually happen to agree with that because the big controversy was, Michael Malone brought the starters out in the third quarter, halfway through the third quarter, and they didn't go back in the game. And second unit comes in and they play hard. They fought and they made a run. They actually cut it to single digits with about 6 minutes to go. There's a timeout. I thought Michael Malone was going to bring the starters back in at that moment. It sounds like you would have brought at least one starter. Maybe you would have at least gone back to Jokic or something down the stretch. Or is at that point you're thinking, you know what? They had their chance. They never got over it.
I don't think you ever slammed the door on your starters like you did, except there is a time for that. But when he was doing it last night, I didn't like the time at what's going on right now to do it.
Right.
There are times where arrogance and cockiness and unprofessional attitude comes up and you slap them around a little bit. But there's a lot of crazy going on right now. I don't even get it, man. I watched games last night. I had to go to my phone and figure out who these guys were.
Right.
When did they sign this guy? Lance Stevenson was playing last night. Yep. I didn't know he was there.
Joe Johnson.
Yeah, Joe Johnson's back. So, I thought because of the chaos that's going on with COVID and Christmas and not playing well, I thought you had to kind of, and why wouldn't you put Jokic back in? They were giving up shots off of when they were doubling him and scrambling on him. And Jokic I think you're one of your best fourth quarter 3-point shooters in the game. He makes shots in the fourth quarter, even though sometimes he doesn't make them during the first 3 quarters. But he is really good in the fourth quarter. So single digits, put him back in the game. It might scare the hell out of OKC.
I wonder that one of the things I really thought of last night after the game, after I'm really thinking and making notes on the game, the first unit has made up for that second unit all year. Second unit has been a drag on the first unit all year. And last night was an opportunity where the second unit was picking up. The starters were the drag. And I thought it would have been a really neat moment for the bench to come in, cut a 25 points down to 9 points, and then hand the baton over and say, hey, this is a real role reversal here where we picked you up. Now go out there and ride that wave. And I just thought it would have had a meaning to it if they could have said, hey, we didn't have it tonight. You picked us up. Now we're going to go out there and finish the job. I thought that would have had a good galvanizing effect on the team, but we didn't get to see it. Malone was clearly pretty upset, and And I was disappointed in the way that game went. If we just go back, we haven't talked for 3 weeks. You were very down on the Nuggets 3 weeks ago. You really were not impressed with what you've seen. Are you any more impressed, less impressed, or right where you were 3 weeks ago with the team overall?
Oh, I thought they did really well about 2 weeks ago. I thought they went on their 7-game road trip and came back 4-3.
Yep.
I thought that was a hell of an accomplishment, more so than they got credit for. I thought it was a difficult road trip, and they played well at times. Didn't play well all the time, but played well at times. It gave me confidence they were going to get through it. But the Minnesota game, what I don't like what's going on right now is there too many excuse me, can I say fuck?
You can say whatever you want on this show.
There's too many fucking excuses on this basketball team. Too many people make excuses for this team. And, everybody wants to argue about who should be playing, who's this and that. And they have no flow in my mind. I don't think Malone has got a rotation that he really believes in yet. Maybe that will come. You got some young kids, you got some injuries, and you're almost halfway through the year. And don't get me wrong, you have plenty of time. You have plenty of time to figure it out. Plenty of time to get on the right page. But there's like 10 teams just like Denver that are in the same boat.
There really are. Yep.
There may be 15 teams.
And there really are. It's true.
I mean,
most of the league.
You got Cleveland leading the Eastern Conference.
Right.
I don't even know who's the starters on Cleveland.
I like them, though. I do enjoy watching
The big guys are playing great.
Yep.
And their guards are good enough to keep them in games. And they have a couple rule guys that shoot the hell out of it. But their two big guys win with defense, and they play really, really well. And which is making me kind of happy because we've all been talking about when's the big guy coming back. Well, watch Cleveland.
The one thing I'll say is they're big guys, and I like them. Jared Allen and obviously Mobley. Those guys are a type of big, especially Jared Allen. He's like Gobert. He's not necessarily a high skill big man. He's just a do his job big man, and that's fine. Like, he does his job. I'm just saying, I don't know if I'm going to proclaim the big man back because players like Jared Allen succeed. To me, that's different.
Well, Jared Allen, I guarantee you right now, there's 20 teams in the NBA that wish they had him as his center.
Oh, easily.
Because he's a no-nonsense guy, doesn't take a lot of maintenance. There's no plays run for him. He understands the pick and roll game. He understands that he's an offensive rebounder, and he understands he's a defender. But he has become a pretty damn good offensive player. His efficiency is off the charts. He finishes now.
Yep, he's a good finisher.
And the other guys just can block. He can have a defensive game. He can have a Bill Russell type game at times.
Right.
Not being as shot block oriented as Russell, but he makes people miss shots around the rim.
Jared Allen to me is first team all stay inside the lines. Meaning you tell him, hey, this is your role on the team. He just never goes outside that, ever. I mean, there are times he'll catch the ball 5 feet away, won't have a good look at the basket, and he'll just dribble it out, pass it, and say, hey, let's keep going. And there's not many players that'll pass up a B- 5-footer. They'll just he's so good at it. I just don't think he's more of a, like I said, because he's inside the lines, he's not. I'm not going to say the big man is back if he's there, but that's just a personal preference with it. Is there somebody, you mentioned Malone and not trusting his rotation? I agree with you. But he actually is playing every player on the roster right now.
Stop doing that. Stop it.
Well, who would you cut out?
You're halfway through the season. Build some confidence in your bench.
Who that is playing real minutes right now would you cut out, or would you reduce the minutes? And who would you maybe up them? Because if you cut somebody out, that means guys are playing a little bit more. Is there a name right now that you look at and say, hey, I don't know if it's his time?
Well, my whole thing over the last, not only the last year or two, but for like 3 or 4 years, is they always gravitate to scorers. They want shooters and scorers. I want playmakers. I want guys that know how to play basketball. I want guys that will pass the ball to the open guy all the time. I want guys that make each other better. I want glue guys that have a mental and physical toughness that comes onto the court every night. Not every once in a while, but every night. And now, don't get me wrong, that's on the player.
Yeah.
But in the same sense, come on, coaches have an ability to help guys build confidence. I have not seen that for 4 years. I probably believe in the bench more than most coaches. I always wanted my bench to be a top 5 bench in the NBA. I didn't want it to be a bottom 5 bench in the NBA. I think benches win a lot of basketball games in the NBA, and I coach that way. But as I said, even last year, I didn't know who he was going to play half the time, because I'll give you a scenario of this. I played in San Antonio. I was probably the 4th guard in San Antonio. The 3rd guard was Mike Gale, and Mike Gale is a hell of a guy. He just died recently, but he was probably a better player than me. But we were different players. He was more athletic. I was more glue guy, hustle guy. And we would go the whole year, sit next to each other when the game started. And we never knew who was going to go in first.
Mm.
That didn't help either one of us. It didn't help either one of us. It would have been better to sit me all the time, play me when a guy gets hurt, and give Mike Gale the job, because in the end, he won the job. But we went 82 games not knowing. And it didn't happen until the playoffs where the decision was made.
Well, I'm going to put you on the hot seat here, because I know you have these opinions, but I want to find out which players specifically you would go to more, or maybe mix up their role. We'll go through the roster here. But first, we are presented exclusively by DraftKings Sportsbook. You guys know them. They're a huge partner of ours, and they are the title sponsor of the show. It's Christmas week, and at DraftKings Sportsbook, they are official sports betting partner of the NBA. We told you they're official sports partner of the NFL, also the NBA. And they got a gift that'll certainly put you in the holiday spirit. New customers can bet just $5 on any NBA team and win $150 in free bets if they're victorious. So you got like a 50-50 shot here of cashing in really, really big. All DraftKings customers can also get in on the Christmas spirit with the holiday free bet surprise. Listen to this, BS. If you get anywhere from $10 to $50 for free, you don't even have to do anything. It's just like a holiday gift. I got $10. I got the least amount as my holiday gift. Superstar Dev, of course, got $50. Just his luck. But you guys can check it out. And actually, when you do, let me know what you get. I'm curious to see what everybody got. If everybody was like me and got the lump of coal $10, or if you got the Superstar Dev $50. DraftKings is safe, secure, reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the top-rated sportsbook app right now. Use promo code DNVR. Bet just $5 on any NBA team and win $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code DNVR. Christmas week. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. All right, Coach, I'm putting you on the hot seat here because I really want to know, like, if there's specific players that you feel you can reduce, out of the rotation or limit their minutes or maybe play him differently. I mean, Jokic, is there anything you would do differently with Jokic right now? Maybe even play him more minutes, play him more with the bench, or do you you feel like he's like, okay, nothing to be changed there?
I would go to Jokic and ask him what he wants. What would make him mentally tough for the rest of the year? It wouldn't be my decision. It'd be, and maybe I would say to him, hey, in the big games against maybe the 10 or 20 games that we might need you to play a 40-minute playoff type of game, do you want to do that? Because I'm not into load management as much as everybody else is. And I think, I think he's a great player and he makes other people better. And when you take him off that court, everybody feels it.
Yeah.
The numbers tell you can't take him off the court. Nothing works when he's not in the game. So one, you go management and maybe try to get another veteran player that can give that 10 minutes of leadership or help rather than have a bunch of young, good athletes, good players trying to figure out where their personality fits on this basketball team. There's too many times out there that I don't know who even the second best player is. Last night, who was the second best player?
Yeah.
Will Barton looked like he was lackadaisical. Aaron Gordon didn't. Those would be the guys that would be on my list of second or third player, but they weren't there either.
Yeah. What about Aaron Gordon? Do you like to see him sharing the court with Jokic almost exclusive? I mean, they've gotten some great chemistry this year. Or would you rather use him a little bit opposite Jokic sometimes?
I personally do not like Aaron Gordon as a three-man.
Okay.
But that's a bias that I had formed probably 20 years ago when I always felt that the four-man in college or the 4 and 5 man in college that tries to be a three-man or a wingman in the NBA, I think that's the hardest. It's the hardest change of your skill set in the NBA. And Aaron Gordon has done a good job with that. He is not a bad three, but I would probably try to play him more at 4 and 5 and play more athletic around him, maybe at 5.
Wow. Does that mean, so then hold on, let me move it to Jeff Green would be my next guy, because when him and Jeff Green are on the court, they're both 4s. I mean, you can say one's the 3, one's the 4, but does that mean you maybe would consider taking Jeff Green out of the starting lineup or staggering more minutes to where you only have one of those guys on the court at a time?
I think you need more. Who is the best playmaker in the backcourt with Barton and Morris? I don't know. I'm sorry?
I think Monte.
I mean, I'm saying Monte and Barton, I think, are good above average to good playmakers.
Okay.
But it's not enough when Jokic is not in the game. So when Jokic is out of the game, I would probably go small and playmakers. So I'd probably play Aaron Gordon at center and 4 of my best playmakers, whoever they are. Jeff Green and Michael Green, I like both of them. I don't know why we have both on the team.
Right.
I would rather have the one thing about last night's game that I liked. If I was Tim Conley right now, you know who I'd be looking at? Derek Favors.
Really?
Back up to Jokic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy, that works.
Big, plays hard, screens.
Knows who he is.
Yeah.
He might take a shot once in a while that you don't like, but he does a little dirty work for you. And I'm just saying, we don't have a backup center. I'm confused. I mean, why don't we have at least one? Most teams have 2 or 3.
We talked about this last time we were on, but they had them last year. They didn't play. I'm guessing that's the reason. Is JaVale McGee, who's having a career year right now down in Phoenix, was on the roster, but he never got off the bench. So I think why
don't you ask Conley and Malone that?
What do you mean?
I need to know that answer a little bit too.
I'm telling you, I think that's the answer. They, Malone was handed a backup center, but just didn't want to play him. So I think it's like, well, we'll use the roster spot in a different way this year. What about Will Barton? What do you see from him? And would you play him maybe fewer minutes with the starting unit, try to move him more to playing with the bench? What would you do with him right now?
Come on, Adam. Everybody's afraid to tell him, look him in the face. Will, you are a bench player. You can be a great bench player. You might be 6th man of the year coming off the bench. We've let him professionally whine into being a starter. Now, I don't know if he might be a starter. But I think when they're all healthy, I think you got a scenario that I said this a year ago, probably 2 years ago. Will Barton would be a hell of a bench guy for me. He'd be coming in. I'd be giving him a lot of shots. I'd be giving him a lot of latitude to put on to give our team a big quarter. Give me a 14-point quarter. And Will Barton would love that, I think. But he likes being a starter more. He's a little old for me to be hung up on being a starter.
Yeah. What is the risk there, in your opinion? Is there a risk? Or is it's more you're afraid to do it than it's actually like you just say, hey, man, we're doing this? Or is there a risk a player tunes out, checks out?
A coach a long time ago, Pete Noel was very good in my career. And I was I think I got fired in Cleveland. Maybe I got fired in Golden State. And I spent a day with Pete Noel. And we talked about, philosophy and what I was doing. And he said, George, you're doing what Don Nelson wants to do. You're doing what Larry Brown liked to do. And you're doing what Del Harris kind of taught you to do. Do what you have to do, because the players feel when you are committed and when you're in compromise. Compromise doesn't work. Compromise doesn't work. Let me make sure you understand. Compromise in the NBA does not work.
Right. Do you think that's one of the things that's going on in Denver right now is maybe players feel there's a sense of that compromise? I'll say this. I had heard from some reputable people that maybe some of that was going on in years past, that there were some veteran players that were getting priority that maybe shouldn't have, because maybe there was a fear of disrupting the vibe around the team if you're too hard on them.
Adam, it's not only in Denver, it's all through the NBA. You're being gentle that coaches don't always have to say anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong. That may be where the game is going, and that's probably why I probably never coach in the league anymore. But, I'll just give you an example. My son is 14-1. He just won the NBA G League tournament. Total chaos. They had 3-point guards to start the season. They had no point guards yesterday, and they still won. And all he did was what I think anybody does, is simplify. And go, and then you do Belichick. You demand detail in these things. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you don't do this, you're not playing.
Right.
But today we have players on minute limits, physical limits, fatigue. I mean, Kobe has guys that can only play 20 minutes, and then other guys got to play 30 minutes.
Right.
I'm sitting there going, how in the hell do you coach?
How do you juggle all that? You got to have
a coach
just monitoring minutes.
It's like management wants to have a say in how the coach coaches. It's stupid in my mind, but I might be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong though. I might be wrong though.
Let's talk about the Hall of Fame. You were nominated. Was last year the first year you were nominated for the Hall?
Adam, I don't even know. I think I've been nominated at least. Maybe 2 years. This might be my third.
So this is your third year. I think Chauncey Billups is up. He's another candidate this year as a player. What would it mean for you to enter the Hall? I mean, you're a top 10 winningest coach in NBA history. Is it an important achievement for you?
I can't deny that in the last couple of years, that conversation has been in my life a little bit more than it was when I was more active in coaching. And there's no question that I would be honored. But my what I'm trying to say, and this might be, I want to be humble here, And because the game has been great to me, and so asking for a Hall of Fame is, but I shouldn't be doing that. But what I also believe that the Hall of Fame doesn't get enough guys in the Hall of Fame that should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's the bottom line is, I'm not saying, right now there's 75, they're honoring 75 players, and they're going to honor 15 coaches. 15? Why only 15? Why couldn't it be 25? Why couldn't it be 50? Because there are a lot of great coaches that got out of the game. Billy Cunningham's a great coach. Could have been an all-time great coach. He got out of the game after he won a championship. He didn't want to go anymore. He didn't want to coach.
I rarely hear about him, to be honest with you. I always find that curious because you always hear the other side, the Lakers coaching tree or the history. But Cunningham, for some reason, it's like I'd never hear stories about him.
Well, it's just, and there's more like, one of my favorite players in coaching is Detlef Schrempf. Why is he not even mentioned? But, Detlef wasn't flamboyant. But Detlef was an all-star, played on winning teams almost everywhere place he was, and was an adaptable position guy. Could play 3, 4, 2, actually could play some point. But we don't get that guy. And we always want the flamboyant. We want the big number guy. We want the top 20 scorer.
Right.
Why not go out and put Bruce Bowen in the Hall of Fame
right.
as the best role guy ever to play the game of basketball, maybe?
Really? Wow.
I mean, why? Why won't we have these conversations? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to go in the Hall of Fame. It would be a great celebration for my family and my career. But in the same sense, it's not something that, I lose sleep over, but I do lose sleep over that I think the Hall of Fame should open up their doors more.
I feel like I've gotten to know you well enough to say this, and that is that you really love the game of basketball. I mean, it's really important to you, not just as an abstract thing, but you really want it to be in a good place and to be a part of it. And because you were in the league for so long as a player, as a coach, because you were in so many important moments, I think you might be underselling a little bit and I understand why, but I believe it would be a really big deal for you to kind of be able to look back and say, I'm recognized as a part of the history of the game. I know you already are, whether you're, getting the Hall or not, but to be recognized as the history of the game includes me in it. I just feel like that would be a really big thing. And I hope it happens this year. Would it mean anything to you, Chauncey Billups going in with him? I know he's one of your all-time favorites. I know how you speak about him, but if you were to share entrance the same year, I think that would be special.
Well, I think Chauncey's got to worry about his team right now.
He definitely has other concerns.
Yes, Chauncey is Nate McMillan, and I've said to you, and I think many times, I've said Chauncey Billups and Nate McMillan are the two best leaders I've ever been around. And they were both very powerful and very influential in my successes in Seattle. I don't get it done without Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan and Tim Gergeridge helped me with Gary and Sean. At a time in my career, my ego was a little bit out of control. And then Chauncey came here, and it was a master. He turned a team that was falling apart in about 2 weeks. We all knew in that locker room that we could be a great team.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with basketball skills. It has everything to do with inspiring a team to play the right way.
I don't want to linger on this topic because I think everybody's tired of the topic, but I do just want to ask you about how the NBA has handled COVID so far this season. And if you have any thoughts about how they're handling it. Here's one thing I'll say. Austin Rivers did an interview the other day where he said they're not even testing us. And I found that to be really surprising, that they're not even testing unless they have to. Basically, if there's like probable cause that, okay, then they'll test you. And he says, I don't even know. There might be guys on our team that have it. We just don't know because nobody tests us. They will test starting December 26th, the day after. They got to get through Christmas. They don't want to lose any big games. I have a feeling December 26th, we're going to have 100 guys enter COVID protocols this year.
Well, the rumor I'm hearing is that the league is planning maybe a shutdown.
You think?
I've heard that a couple times today.
Wow.
That they're fearful. They feel that in 2 weeks that there could be 500,000 people a day come down with COVID.
Right.
And I don't know why they're going to do it, what their reasoning or scientific evidence says they should do it or why they do it. But I think sometimes when the country is kind of in a crisis, the NBA has got to be aware of that, to where they can, if shutting down supports everybody, I think they got to think about it. But I think what everybody found out is when we shut sports down the last time, everybody wanted sports. And when it came back, it seemed to help us with a mental energy that we had our team to cheer for. We had something to watch on TV that we liked. I'm an advocate of shortening the NBA season. I have been for a while. But that's not going to happen unless we figure out a formula that players won't lose money.
Right.
I have no idea that scenario. So I think the league should have a pulse on the society of America. And if they can be helpful in helping us get through this hell that we all feel, and it's getting to be a long time. I don't know how you feel, Adam, but COVID depression is there in my life.
Yeah.
COVID sadness is there in my life. And, it's now so much, about travel. I'm planning on traveling soon for Christmas to see my grandchildren. But, there has been a conversation. Should we go? Should we start having a family party with 20 people in it?
Right.
I don't know. My doctors advised me, give me statistics, but in the end, it's my decision. I'm totally vaccinated, and I got my booster. If they have a booster tomorrow, I'll take that one. And I'll be honest with you, I'm coming out. I mean, I wish someone out there would be able to explain to me why they don't want to take a shot.
Well, it's one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, I feel like everybody in the internet age, especially in the social media age, has become increasingly political, meaning people, it's become more of a part of a person's personality. And I wonder, one of the conversations in that Rolling Stone article, I mentioned Austin Rivers saying they don't test. One of the things he said is that the conversation in NBA locker rooms is full of conspiracy theories and this distrust or this or that. Did you notice that when you were coaching with let's say the Nuggets in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, do you feel players have gotten more political or more, this has become a bigger topic, or were guys sharing sometimes some pretty outside the box perspectives on society back then? Even was it common?
Oh wow! I think the players are getting more, for a better phrase, more intellectually active or politically active or community active. They are much more aware of what happens outside of the game of basketball than ever before. The branding, the internet, the activities on social media, they know that that has an influence. I'm not saying good or bad. And now you have so many people around the game of basketball that you don't even know who they are. You have the shooting coach for one guy and the nutritionist for another guy and the yoga teacher for another guy. And, they kind of all have their programs. And the truth of the matter is I was out with Chad Iskey last night. They don't practice.
Right. Yeah.
They don't practice enough, in my opinion. I know
Black
players.
Chanjar mentioned this the other day, just yesterday, by the way, after the game. He said, we just don't practice. We've even been on the road. We don't practice. It's hard to gain chemistry when the games are the only time you're really on the court together.
It doesn't help the game.
Yeah.
The game loses its fluidity, loses the connection that is needed to win a championship. The trust and belief in each other. It comes in practice as much as it comes in games.
Yeah.
And I don't buy it. I don't buy not being on the practice court. I don't know why, but I just think that is a higher priority in my mind of why the league is kind of plateaued a little bit. And I don't know what's going to change. I have no idea. I don't think the players are going to demand more practice.
Right.
Guess who's going to have to demand it? Management's going to have to demand it. And right now, management and organizations and even the league office, everybody feels that they all are player. They love the player a little bit more than they love maybe coaching.
Kale, let's wrap up. I know we got a couple questions here. I asked some people for questions early on. Let's try to hit 2 or 3 of these if we can here in our final 5 minutes or so. What do we got? Are we there, Kale? Did we lose our super producer? Kale, are you at the wheel? I guess we don't hear it. I see one right here. What's he writing me? Scrolling up. Give me a second. Okay. Just want to say thanks for doing this. We got a Sonics fan. Somebody who's a Sonics fan who now has become a Nuggets fan with Jokic's arrival. So my goodness, a dream come true. A podcast, a dream come true, Coach. You found your perfect target audience right here in Vanya. Sonics/Nuggets fan.
Well, I want you to know that I hope that you're really working hard at getting a team back in Seattle. And yeah. I mean, as much as I would like to be in the Hall of Fame, I will be a lot more happy to see basketball back in Seattle. I think it's one of the disappointments. I could go harder than that. Maybe say one of the disgraces of the NBA in the last 25 years was taking the team out of Seattle.
All right, did we find a couple questions there, Kale? Do we have one lined up? Let's see. What does George think about Facu?
I love him. I keep him on my team forever, but there are certain games I wouldn't play him.
Okay.
And I think he would handle that very well.
Yeah, he probably would.
He's a pro. He's a pro's pro, plays the game every possession the right way. And I would say 75 to 80% of the games, he'd be playing for me. But there are some nights that you might want to go some other places, especially when Jamal Murray comes back.
Who is a bad matchup for him? Like, what games is there or not for him?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, for me, he's an energy bunny. He's a guy that picks your team up and lifts it up. I think it's more of a matchup scenario. But, he's a hell of a defender. He bothers people. I don't know for a fact that I would. Right now, the way the roster is set up, I don't know if he would not play a lot. But I would like to maybe have a bigger, maybe a little more playmaker-oriented point guard. I like 6'6" guys. I like guys that, can rebound a little bit. And even though Facu is a good rebounder, but I love the guy. But I think there are times I would like to have maybe another personality back there as a point guard on my team.
There you go. What else, Kale? What other one do we have? Will MPJ ever become a positive defender after all of these injuries? That's a tough one.
Well, it's a tough one because the answer is probably no.
Yeah.
And I know you don't want to hear that. All young players get better defensively. All young players understand preparation and game planning a little later in life. So I think that'll happen. But I'll ask you the question. You have Aaron Gordon and you have Porter Jr. Do you know what position they play best?
Yeah, I mean they're both 4 probably.
Yeah, and they'll both probably want to be 3s. Porter wants to be 2.
It's tough for sure. We'll get one more here. Do the Nuggets have a systemic effort problem, or is this the normal ebb and flow in an NBA season for most, if not all teams? I love this question, Vanya, and I can't wait to hear what Coach says. But here's one thing, Coach. We talked about winning streaks. That's one thing the Jokic era Nuggets have not had is a long winning streak. I think it's like 8 games. And I wonder if it's for this exact thing, this systemic effort. There are nights, and Jokic is one of them. Like in a lot of ways, when I criticize this team, it's like other than Jokic, he's the only guy that does this or that or whatever. But this is one where I feel like he's also on the same level. He doesn't always have that killer instinct or just, hey, I'm coming out tonight. I don't care. Like he goes through a few emotional ebbs and flows, I feel.
He's getting better, though.
He is.
And the ebb and flows were 5 or 6 a year or 2 ago. Now they're 2 or 3.
Right.
Last night, of course, being one of them.
Yeah, was.
I don't think they're in everything. I've always admired Coach Malone on his ability to bounce back. I mean, tonight's games, history says that Malone's team will come to play tonight. And Charlotte needs a win. You know, Charlotte needs a win. And Charlotte's going to come after him. And whatever OKC did last night, they might see it again tonight.
Well, I hope not. That would be a really bad Christmas present to the city of Denver to have to repeat what we saw last night. Coach, that does it for today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and joining this conversation. I always enjoy talking with Coach. I know you guys always enjoy hearing his insights on the Nuggets. Coach, I hope you have a very happy holiday, a very great Christmas and New Year, and we'll circle back in January. Hopefully the league's still going on. The Nuggets will have some home games. I'm going to have to get you over to watch the game with me in the studio here in January, and we'll have to do this again in a couple weeks.
Well, you know, as I tell all my friends right now, is sometimes it's tough to see the sunshine, but you know, this is the time of the year that it's time to be joyful and celebratory. You know, find the things in life that you really love and are the foundation of your love and success, and go out there having a hell of a time. And 2022 was my number, so 2022. I think it's going to be a hell of a year.
All right, there you go. The year of George Karl. I like it. Thank you so much, everybody. Hit that like button on the way out. Don't forget to subscribe. This is a podcast as well. So if you don't ever catch the live video of this, it's always podcast form, the Keeping It 1000 podcast. George Karl's doing a bunch of great things with Truth in Media, including Forgotten Seasons, including the Truth in Basketball podcast, all of which you should rate, review, subscribe so you don't ever miss an episode. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.